so you want me to tell you the story of my life.
Like I said, that's what I do. I interview people. I'm a collector of lives.
Welcome to Table Talk. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. This is the show where I go one-on-one with a creator, author, illustrator, publisher, or other mover and shaker in the world of tabletop games, video games, TV, movies, or any other area of the geekverse.
You followed me here, didn't you?
Yeah, I suppose I did. You seem very interesting. This is where you live?
Yes, this is my home. Welcome.
So, what do you do?
I'm a vampire.
That's something I haven't heard before.
Guests have included individuals such as Lou Anders, the author of the Thrones and Bones fantasy novels, creator and publisher of the Norengard RPG, and even the author of Star Wars, A Pirate's Price.
Bond. James Bond.
Well, not James Bond. I haven't gotten to talk to him yet, but maybe sometime in the future. But how about Brian Colin, the creator of the vast, grim, dark horror RPG and sculptor of the world of Revelo monster busts? Mark Tassin, the creator of the world of Italtus, head of Mechanical Muse, and the head developer of the new Cool Name RPG. I've spoken with Jeff Engelstein, game designer and former commentator on the Dice Tower. He and I got deep into the statistics, probability, and psychological function of dice in tabletop games. Jamie Stegmaier, the founder of Stonemaier Games and crowdfunder extraordinaire. He's published many hit board games like Scythe and Wingspan. I've spoken with Sydney Engelstein from Indie Boards and Cards to talk about what it really takes to publish a board game in today's environment and what it would take for you to get published if you were trying to get a publisher for your board game. I've spoken with Ajit George about game writing, education, and his contribution to Van Richter's Guide to Ravenloft and his development of the Journey Through the Radiant Citadel Dungeons & Dragons book. Let's see, who else have I spoken to?
I am Hela, Odin's firstborn, commander of the legions of Asgard, the rightful heir to the throne and the goddess of death.
Yes, I really appreciate her taking the time to speak with me. That was a great interview. I've also spoken with Cameron Pasha, writer and novelist who's been working in Hollywood for over 20 years. His projects have included Emmy and Golden Globe nominated Sleeper Cell, Kings, Nikita, and Roswell, New Mexico. His analysis and commentary have been very popular on YouTube. I've gotten to speak with Paul Shadow, the former network executive, who has made quite a splash here on YouTube with his reaction videos to current movies and films. He and I discussed the status of independent film and web productions online today. Brianna De Silva is a reoccurring guest on the show and a very popular one at that. She's an author and director, and she was also the co-writer of the Cultist comedy web show that's here on the channel. She and I regularly meet to study and analyze stories. I've also gotten to speak with of the Positive Fandom channel. She's an ally in our effort to be a positive and constructive force in the geekverse. Are you ready? Have you got your drink? Are you all settled in? You might want to buckle up because it could be a wild ride. We're about to explore the worlds of tabletop gaming, sci-fi, fantasy, and the geekverse through the eyes of those who are making things happen.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.
It's time for Table Talk. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Table Talk. It is so good to have you here tonight. I think we're going to have an absolutely excellent conversation and show tonight. I would like to invite, we have it on the show tonight, Doug Burton. He has a very unique perspective on what he's calling the feminine or the female monomyth as kind of an alternative to the hero's journey. And this goes perfect with the themes of story analysis that Brianna and I have been doing on this show, and he was recommended to be interviewed on this on the show, or could come on the show to explain his theory by Cameron Pasha, who has been an extremely popular person around on YouTube for his commentary, but also a very obviously very popular also here on Table Talk when we had our discussion on good and evil. So I would like for everyone to welcome Doug Burton. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
And thank you, Heath, and also thank you to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I would just say it's fantastic to have you. I really appreciate your being here.
Yeah, I was just going to say thanks to you, and as well as Cameron for making this all happen. This is great.
So yes, he was the one who put us in touch, and so I really appreciate him as well. We're gonna do sort of a different format. I'm experimenting with some new formats here this morning and today. We're going to have about an hour discussion here where Doug is going to be outlining his theory about the feminine monomyth, and I'm going to let him really articulate his side of the story, because we may even get together later for further discussion. But I want to know what the theory is and how it goes and all of that. So we're gonna have that discussion, and then we've set up a members only live stream after this, so that immediately after we close here, like, we'll swap right over to the members only stream. So if you're a channel member, you'll be able to just immediately log into that, and we can take questions from the channel members and things like that. We can look through here, and I was about to say something about super chats here during this stream, and we already have a super sticker. We have a super sticker from from Positive Fandom. So thank you so much for being here, Arum. So thank you. So we'll take a look at we may stop and scroll through the chat and take questions once or twice during this stream if things come up. But then what we will do is here we go. But then what we'll do is we'll get into deeper questions afterwards. Okay. So Doug, do you want to tell everybody who you are and what you were doing? And
sure. I'm an author, and I wrote my debut novel a couple years ago, and it was about a Byzantine empress named Theodora. And the novel did very well, but while writing it, I ran into some issues with the hero's journey, which is what I bet on and placed all my faith in when I tried to write the novel. So that, I guess, is a good starting point too for what we're talking about tonight, because writing that book caused kind of an impasse with the hero's journey, and it caused me to start looking with fresh eyes on like story structure. So
okay, I want to ask you specifically, not at this moment, but I want to ask you specifically about your experience with that novel about Theodora.
Sure.
But what I thought we would do is I wanted to come up with like some really short introduction to the way that we've been framing story structure and our discussion of story structure on here, because I haven't even started to formalize it yet. But throughout the discussion with Brianna and others, I've got at least some notes. So I'm bring those up, and then we're going to see where your theory fits into what we've been doing. I mean, if it does.
Okay,
it sounded like
sure.
to me
That sounds great.
Which is why I was like, oh, this will be perfect. But okay, so this is just my preliminary notes on what we've been saying here on this channel. And so if you're new here, then this is kind of a catch up. So Brianna and I have been trying to study stories here, and particularly the structure of stories. And so I was saying this is some kind of theory of basic story structures, a basic categorization of them, trying to come up with what are, good. I was saying, what are the archetypical story structures? And I was saying that maybe there are 6 to 8, and I had no particular reason for 6 to 8, other than I thought that I agreed with what Maxwell Alexander Drake, who I need to interview personally one-on-one as well, but he's one of the authors that I really like, especially as far as his writing books goes. But he was saying that we posited the question, is it possible to take all possible stories and distill them down into some theory that explains storytelling? And the idea was,
yeah, that's a pretty big question. So the first thing it says, the hero's journey hypothesizes archetypically masculine. And I've thought about that a lot, because in researching the Heroine's Labyrinth, I ran into what ended up being a lot of criticism of the hero's journey, a lot of which was founded. And one of the biggest criticisms is there's a kind of a male centrism to the hero's journey. I read that a lot. However, I have kind of a different take on that based on what I came up with from the Heroine's Labyrinth. My thought on that is that the hero's journey is actually kind of an expanded version of the soldier's journey, in which, if you think about what a soldier's arc is, they leave home, they have their identity broken down, they master several skills, usually combat skills. They assume a new identity under the military culture or structure, and then they are sent off far from home to confront a militant enemy, the bad guys. And hopefully the hero or the soldier or warrior returns. So to me, the hero's journey is really about whoever fulfills that warrior role in a culture, which the reason I think it's monomythic is because the warrior role repeats everywhere. It's repeated in almost every culture. the soldier's journey is the same, whether it's 1,000 years ago or 7,000 years ago or today. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female, anyone can fulfill that warrior role. I think the reason the male centrism creeps into it is because mostly men have fulfilled this role in history, just as a matter of historical fact. The majority have been men, so there's kind of this slant of male centrism that goes with it. However, there's been a lot of women that have fulfilled the warrior's role. And if a woman fulfills this warrior's role, then her arc will likely be very similar to the hero's journey, if not identical.
Okay, yeah. Now, I would put hypothesized here because we brought that up on the channel, but we haven't completely explored that in detail, and you can probably help with that. But sure. I did say that hypothesized is archetypically masculine, but we had discussed that masculine and feminine is not always the same as male and female, because the female, like for instance, the female embodied could go on the archetypically masculine journey. So that's what you're talking about, that perhaps that even so the story might be archetypically male, there's nothing that prevents a woman from going on it. Now, and we haven't explored that in great detail yet, but it's some of the ideas that have come up for more exploration. That's why I was saying living it at the level of hypothesis here.
Sure.
We also come up with Beauty and the Beast, which we have not studied hardly at all on the channel yet, but we noted it and said that that's hypothesized archetypically feminine. We have been trying to study the fall on this series.
I heard some of your conversation on the corruption arc.
Right, and its relationship with corruption and stuff like that. And actually, Cameron and Brianna and I are going to be talking about that again on Tuesday. But then, so it seems like right here, we'll get to the Heroine's Labyrinth I put here, because you would put your own theory on this level, right?
Right. So Beauty and the Beast is actually a Heroine's Labyrinth tale.
Oh, really?
As is Little Red Riding Hood. There's actually several male stories that follow the Heroine's Labyrinth, such as The Godfather, Fight Club, Rambo, First Blood, The Game, The Dark Knight, which is a Batman story. So they to me, these, when you say archetypally masculine or archetypically feminine, I think that is mostly true. However, I do think that there are aspects of both the hero's journey and the Heroine's Labyrinth that might have like feminine or masculine dynamism, but are also transcendent of gender altogether, meaning anyone could go on these journeys. A male can be in the Heroine's Labyrinth and a female can go on the hero's journey. I do think that they are interchangeable. And I think that the reason they work and appeal to people throughout so many years is because of that ability to transcend the gender.
Okay. Well, right. So that's I think that the distinction between the masculine and feminine and the male or female embodied is an important part of the theory.
Yes.
If even masculine and feminine up here makes sense. That's why I just left it as hypothesized. Okay, but that's interesting. So that actually you're moving Beauty and the Beast. We want to talk more about Little Red Riding Hood, because I had never thought of that. I read the preface to his book, everybody. I really enjoyed it. So I read the preface and you talked about Little Red Riding Hood, which is why I put it here.
Yes.
And then, so that would be interesting, because I was like, maybe if they're only 6 to 8, which may not be correct. That's just the hypothesis we're working on. I was like, oh man, I only have 4, but you're proposing a combination of Beauty and Beast and Heroine's Labyrinth here.
Yes. So I grew up on the hero's journey, as did a lot of people. Now,
I'm going to take these notes. I'm going to take these notes down and let you have at it. Then I always say that when we're talking about story structure, we're not talking about themes.
Well, there are. So
okay,
I think that they're interrelated. I think the archetypal structure of the hero's journey is archetypal for a reason. Okay. I think the pattern of events recurs in real life, and that's what we're reacting to. We understand that when a soldier leaves and he's risking his life, and so when we see the hero depart on his journey, we see that, we understand that he's in great danger. He's going to risk his life in this endeavor. That's why I believe there's the refusal of the call. I think the hero who wants to go away and wants to have this adventure balks, because the reality of what he's about to agree to hits him, and he second guesses himself. Do I really want to go on this? You can even think about in Lord of the Rings. Remember the moment where Frodo's like, "I will take the ring," and he has to speak up and interrupt everyone. "I'll take the ring to Mordor." What's Gandalf's reaction? It's not relief or gratitude. It's like sorrow, because he realizes that Frodo is about he might be expendable for our sakes. So I think that the reality of what a soldier's arc is embedded in the hero's journey, and that archetypal relationship is what we're responding to so strongly. So the themes that are naturally going to be a part of that journey can change, they can vary, but there are themes that are going to kind of be baked in to that archetypal journey. So I think there's a relationship between the themes and the archetypal progression, or the arc that the hero's going on when he goes on the hero's journey, or she. Whoever fulfills this warrior role is going to go on the hero's journey to some extent. These rules are not hard fix. You could skip a theme, you could skip an event, and the story can work. But the idea is that there's a complete arc for the hero's journey.
Okay.
So anyway, my thought with the heroine was that if there was going to be I always thought of it as a modification of the hero's journey, like the feminine version of the hero's journey. But I began to question whether there was a standalone archetypal set similar to what the soldier experiences in real life, an archetypal recurrent arc. Is there one for heroines? So that's where that question stemmed from. And I think I'm not the first person to ask that question.
Okay. Then let's walk through the labyrinth, but let's start with how you arrived at it, which is the story of Theodora.
Yes.
So the question that I had when I was reading the preface, and I guess this goes to how you write things, it was a question about why you realized you needed this. So my question, if you're taking a look at a historical figure like Theodora, and you say, I'm going to write, this was going to be a fictionalized version. I guess this was going to be fiction. It wasn't a historical documentary. It was a fiction of her, right?
Right.
Okay. That if I were taking a historical figure, I wouldn't have thought that their life necessarily needed to map onto any story structure.
Okay. Right. So,
okay.
But here's the rub.
Okay.
As writers, I'll be honest, we hate structure. Structure sounds a lot like math. And like we don't like, as a writer, you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to learn grammar. You're going to have to learn structure. So at some point, you have to deal with the fact that Theodora, as a historical figure, has definitive biographical details. So you're going to want to follow those. But those biographical details don't always fit into a nice, compact story. Ask a memoirist. Right. Memoirists will tell you all the time how frustrating and difficult it is to pick out what about their life is going to be their story, what to leave in, what to leave out. So at some point, you're going to run into, how am I going to structure the story? And I had spent 20 years studying the hero's journey. And I've listened to you and Brianna talk, and I'm like, God, it sounds just like me. I have Excel spreadsheets. I have handwritten notes. I have index cards with stuff. I used to sit in the 80s, even before the hero's journey was really a thing. I used to sit in front of a TV with a VCR and hit pause and write down notes about stories, what worked and what didn't. And when I learned the hero's journey, I redid all that and tried to fit each movie into the hero's journey, similar to kind of the discussions that you and Brianna will have. How does this work? How does this fit? So by the time I was writing Faraway Bird, which is the name of the book, I blindly assumed the hero's journey was going to be the foundation upon which the story's structure was going to work. And, I mapped it out ahead of time, and, I thought I had it, but as I started writing, I ran into some major problems. And I'm talking the kind of problems that were so major that the hero's journey wasn't going to solve the story structure. And this was a devastating blow to me, because I had bet the farm on the hero's journey organizing the story for me. And no matter how I cut it, no matter how many ways I tried to massage the narrative, it wasn't going to work. And this bothered me. So I was like, well, what's the feminine version of the hero's journey? Simple enough. And I went out and I started researching, and I think you saw in the preface, this was not a simple solution. This opened a door where I found a million answers to this question, and none of them really gave me the clarity and simplicity and like something that resonated. That I was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. This works as a feminine version of the hero's journey. So I decided to start over and just take a fresh look at movies. And the thing that triggered it was listening to a great courses, which is on like audible.com.
Yeah.
And it was a professor, Hannah B. Harvey, and she had a whole lecture on fairy tales. And she like really went into this deep dive on Little Red Riding Hood and the meaning of it. And she was like, Little Red Riding Hood is a archetypal story about budding womanhood, hence the red color to the hood and cape. And it's about the choices a young heroine is going to make in her life. Is she, and it was actually suggesting promiscuity versus like chastity. And she confronts a masculine beast in disguise in the bed in her grandmother's house, a place that's supposed to be safe. And the beast attempts to eat her. And depending on the story, she either escapes or she doesn't. And while I was listening to this, I was like, that's not in the hero's journey at all. Like that framework, those archetypal things, and they're clearly archetypal. I was like, that little pattern isn't in the hero's journey. It's definitely not about budding womanhood or the choices a heroine's going to make or a beast in disguise. Those are all very, very different tropes. And that's when I was like, what if instead of a modification of the hero's journey, there's a heroine story that's completely standalone and has nothing to do with the hero's journey at all? And I decided to try to take a look from that angle. That's kind of where I went from trying to write a story to struggling with the hero's journey to trying to figure out what the heroine's journey was, not liking what I found, and then being confronted with this idea of an archetypal pattern with an arc that is not part of the hero's journey, but it's clearly archetypal and clearly transcendent of just this one fable. Bella Swan from Twilight is a retelling to some extent of the Little Red Riding Hood, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Dorothy Gale and the Wizard of Oz. So clearly this can be reused like the hero's journey. So that was the moment I decided that there's a standalone potential that might be waiting out there to be identified.
Okay, so you are also so this is fantastic, especially when I was looking at the website, and you've got different parts, which we can go over here in just a moment about what the Labyrinth journey is. But this is actually a structure to a story that you're outlining just the way people outline the hero's journey, but it's different to it. But you're also saying that this is actually already used in modern storytelling, like Bella Swan, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but has not been explicitly recognized as such.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't invent this. I think I found it already there. And the more I looked, the more I found it, more excited I got that this might be something that would help me structure my story. And as I explored it and as I developed these themes, it did help me solve my story massively. It solved a lot of parts of my story. And now I get excited if I'm going to watch a story and there's a heroine lead. I'm like, okay, let's see if this follows it. And I can't tell you how many times I'm like, there it is again. There's the poisoned apple. There's the broken truce. These are all these themes that I thought that I found that recurred in these other stories. Here it is in Women Talking, a movie that just came out. Here it is in Maleficent. Modern stories. So these are recurrent patterns and recurrent themes, like the hero's journey, that when set into a progression, it follows a natural structure and a natural arc based on the conflict that the heroine encounters from her trajectory, just like the hero. So that's what the Heroine's Labyrinth is. It's a completely standalone, monomythic, meaning recurrent throughout several stories, throughout several cultures. and it's a story structure that I think writers can use that should have immediate payoffs to some of your story problems. Things like the horror genre, which seems to be completely detached from the hero's journey, works perfectly with the Heroine's Labyrinth. Crime dramas, like there's a ton of things in memoirs that the hero's journey actually seems to be a better fit for. And that's really why I'm doing this. This is a book to help writers solve the problems that I ran into. So it's writer to writer is really the mentality and the focus I had when putting it together.
Okay, so that's interesting that you would, because I didn't have horror on those notes I had put together. So you would say that horror is subsumed under Heroine's Labyrinth.
A ton of them.
Okay.
A ton of them follow the Heroine's Labyrinth beautifully, almost like it's a stripped down version of the Heroine's Labyrinth that really focuses on what I would call the masked Minotaur, who's the villain of the story. So yeah, it's beautiful. And the crime drama, even the superhero genre, not the origin story, those tend to follow the hero's journey a lot, but a sustained comic run, or like a series on a streaming service, longer winded stories follow the Heroine's Labyrinth. Even Batman, believe it or not, follows the Heroine's Labyrinth. So now that I've identified it and I have it, it just solves so many frustrations that I have as a writer on where things fit and how I can relate to a story that I'm experiencing. And as a writer, now I can pull those out and I can be like, okay, when I'm writing my story, I can use that. I have all these examples that I could fall back on. It really helps me structure my story and my thinking, and gives me some direction in like what might be next in the story. It helps with that. It's like benchmarks.
Okay, I suppose we've left people in suspense long enough. We should probably actually talk about what the structure is.
Okay.
Do you think it would help if I took notes up on screen? Or do you have something I should bring up or anything like that? I don't know.
If you could probably grab when I sent you the preface, there's a table of contents, and the table of contents actually has each theme. So it's a real nice compact view of the themes in the Heroine's Labyrinth. And what I'm going to do today, the book actually tells you what the themes are, what the themes mean, how, why. It really deep dives into these things. It blew my mind, like the discussions that I had, the directions it was led to, and what the meaning behind these are. Just like the hero's journey, like there's really profound meanings in the hero's journey. And it affected me. It's stuff that helped me in my life, in my real life. Some of the wisdom that's like encoded in there. The book will get into all of that. But today I feel like it's best to keep it simple, and I'll focus on just what the themes are in the most general terms, and perhaps provide some examples. Film makes a good examples set because they're visual, and people tend to a lot of us have seen a lot of these films, and a lot of novels which follow the Heroine's Labyrinth, or comic books, have also been adapted into films. So films end up being a very film heavy set of examples.
Okay. Then let's do that. I'll bring up, and I won't leave it up the entire time so they can see us. But so here's the start of it then, so people can take a look. This is the table of contents. So we've got part one. So this is like you do have kind of a 3-act structure here. Is that right?
Right. So I have a thing about structure, as all writers do. It seems like a love-hate type of relationship where we hate structure. Don't tell me there's any rules. Like, I don't want to hear all that. And then we suddenly realize we have to have it. So, and I won't get into this too much in this discussion. I actually took the book and modeled each theme as if turning a tarot card, because a tarot card is architectural information that you have to interpret and put into a narrative. And to me, the Heroine's Labyrinth, the themes come across as the turning of tarot cards. Okay. So that was my approach to structure, something a little bit more intuitive, less grid-like or super structured or math-like. But it has to be mindful to storytelling and mindful to structure on some level. So I put these in what I believe is the most logical order. However, they can come in different orders. Clearly, you can mix these up in some cases, but I put it in what I think is the most rational order.
All right. So Act 1 is the Labyrinth, the Masked Minotaur, the Claiming the Sacred Fire, the Captivity Bargain, the Black Swan, and then it ends with the Call to Adventure. Very similar to the hero's journey. You said we're not going to go. We'll get to that later, but the refusal and then the acceptance. But
It's
the Call to
different. It's
Adventure is
actually
ending
different.
Act 1 very similarly.
You and Brianna
All right.
touched on a major distinction about the Call to Adventure that we'll get to. We'll
right.
talk about it when we get there. But you
All
guys you touched on a important distinction, and you debated it for a while, actually.
All right. Well, I'll let you take it away, starting where you will starting with the Labyrinth or wherever you think this needs to start to articulate this.
Okay, and I'll and give me a nudge if I'm talking too long about it, but
Okay.
I'll try to keep it brief and give you a basic example or understanding of each of the themes that were mapped out.
Okay.
So the first one is the Labyrinth. While watching heroine-centric stories and reading their stories, the first thing I noticed that was clear was that several heroines did not leave the native culture. This immediately differentiated itself from the hero's journey. Hero's journey is very clearly about a hero that leaves the native culture and goes into the outer lands, the exotic outer worlds, and then hopefully returns. Many heroines don't. That one thing doesn't really occur, and a lot, not all, but in a lot of heroine stories, even the stories that appear to be heroines leaving their native culture to go into an exotic journey were actually manifestations of their home life, like Wizard of Oz. The journey was imagined, and a lot of members of her family and home life re-manifested themselves on this fantastical journey. Alice in Wonderland was in her backyard, a rabbit hole. In fact, the definition of rabbit hole, I was pleased to see, has changed forever based on Alice's journey, which fell into a rabbit hole, which was just outside her home. Chronicles of Narnia, she found an entrance to a different place in her house, secret entrance there. What else? There's so many. Pan's Labyrinth. You were talking, was it real? Was it not real? That labyrinth was just outside the military barracks that she called home at the time of the story. So there's even the fantastical voyages where there seems to be this fantastic journey are actually, even like the Yellow Brick Road to me is very maze-like, splits off in different directions. It's like a two-dimensional maze that the heroine goes on. So the biggest idea I would say with the Labyrinth is that the heroine's conflict stems from a struggle against her native culture. That's a major distinction from the hero, who might have some problems with his native culture, but then leaves the native culture to fulfill the hero's journey. The heroine does not leave, so her struggle with the native culture is a big one, and most of her struggles take place within the native culture itself, whether it's rules, social norms, gender roles, secrets that are trying to be protected, all sorts of different things a lot of times secrets to her identity. All of these things play a role in the idea of navigating a labyrinth within the native culture itself. So that's a big one. Sociocultural mazes is one of the things I discussed. First, the fantastical maze. Katniss Everdeen, she's at home the whole time. She's fighting her native culture in that whole story. So that was the big one. The idea that a journey, that's why I didn't call it the heroine's journey. To me, a journey is like a sojourn out and away. The heroine travels a great distance without ever leaving far from the center of the labyrinth. She tends to stay far. She tends to stay closer to home. Her enemies are near and close to her. And this creates an incredible level of conflict that is distinctly different from the hero's conflict in the labyrinth. That's why I went with the Labyrinth. I think that's important. 2, the Masked Minotaur. And this was a big one. The villains of heroine-centric stories tend to be completely different archetypally than the villains of the hero's journey. And I'll explain. In the hero's journey, the villains tend to be militant outsiders. They come from outside the native culture. They are militant culture destroyers in a lot of cases. Think of Darth Vader or the Emperor, Thanos, Sauron and the armies of Mordor, the Witch King and the White Walkers. Winter is coming. Khan from Star Trek has, the Genesis torpedo, which can annihilate planets. They're outsiders and they are very dangerous. The Heroine's Labyrinth, however, usually features a totally different villain, one who's a member of the native culture. They're homegrown, and they are duplicitous. The Minotaur is perfect. Half man, half beast. They have a benevolent, outward-facing human side and a tyrannical animal savage or a savage animal side. So there's a mixture of both. The humanity of the Minotaur is the disguise. That's why they are masked. They are hidden or disguised right there in the native culture. And a lot of times they are social apex members of the native culture. So this presents a completely different type of villain for heroines to go up against, the masked Minotaur. Secondly, and this is a completely different dynamic, the masked Minotaur of heroine-centric stories, if there is one, has what I call possessive love. They tend to try to capture, convert, or monopolize the heroine. This is a recurrent theme through tons of stories. And so anyway, the idea of possessive love, they don't try to kill the heroine. They usually try to capture and mentally, spiritually possess the heroine. That's the idea that a Minotaur, the masked Minotaur, that's the relationship between the villain and the heroine in a lot of stories. So that's a very different villain, very hard to defeat. Combat skill is not the primary go-to skill set, as you might find in the hero's journey, but a deeper sense of cunning and your ability to eventually unmask the Minotaur. So that it's a distinct, different type of villain. And then I had to ask a big question. This is another big distinction between the Heroine's Labyrinth and the hero's journey. Why does the masked Minotaur seek to possess the heroine? This was a weird question to me. I was like, why does this happen all the time? And it's not always male. You know, it's not just like you think of Cal Hotley in Titanic. He's trying to possess Rose. He's trying to capture Rose. But you see several examples of female Minotaurs who are also trying to possess and capture the heroines, such as Mother Gothel in Tangled, or I forgot the mother's name, but the mom in Carrie, the Stephen King novel. These are possessive Minotaurs of the heroine, and they're not male. So why are Minotaurs trying to capture heroines? And the answer to that was where I came up with the sacred fire. Okay. This answers some of the question. The idea of the heroine holding or possessing a sacred fire internally. This is what causes the Minotaur to try to this is what the Minotaur is attracted to and seeks to monopolize, is the sacred fire of the heroine. So one thing about the sacred fire is that there are three claimants. The first claimant is the heroine herself. The heroine claims her sacred fire in several stories. This is universal. Their claim to their sacred fire tends to revolve around individuation and self-agency and autonomy. They want to be left free to pursue their goals. And they make their claim. Disney films are famous for this. You hear Belle wants more than her provincial life. Moana wants to see how far she can go. You know, Frozen, Let It Go. Like these big opening musical numbers are the heroine claiming their sacred fire. They're throwing a gauntlet at the world and saying, "This is what I want." That's the heroine claiming her individuation. We'll get back to the Minotaur in a second. He's the third claimant, or she. The second claimant is the native culture itself, which I said ties into the Labyrinth. In heroine stories around the world and the struggle they have with the native culture's claim to the heroine sacred fire is perhaps the longest standing. Okay. They claim the heroine based on continuity. They don't care so much about the heroine's individual free will. They care about continuity of the family, continuity of the cultural traditions, continuity of the native culture itself. And this claim the native culture takes very seriously. Heroines in all these stories run up against this around the world. It does not matter where heroines are from or what time period. They still run into native cultures claiming their sacred fire as if they've mapped out their future for them. They're very leery of heroines' free will. And then lastly, like we said, that if there is a masked Minotaur in the story, and a lot of them have this, the Minotaur will also claim the heroine sacred fire for himself. But the motivation for the Minotaur is pure ego. They claim this for purely selfish reasons. And those three claims, the heroine's claim for individuation, the native culture's claim for continuity, and the masked minotaur's claim for their own ego, create a triangle of conflict. And that triangle is in tons of heroine-centric stories. And you won't find this triangle hardly anywhere in the hero's journey. It's a completely different conflict pattern. So that's what claiming the sacred fire is.
Okay, I want to ask a question. I hate to intervene because I want to go through all of this, and we're going to go for like 30 or 35 more minutes here before we go over. So I can already tell we're going to have more discussion on this because I got to hear all of this, and I'm taking notes as you're writing and stuff like that. But just so that I understand, so for instance, if we're putting Beauty and the Beast as a subset of this, okay, so she's trying to claim herself, right? But then is the Minotaur in this the Beast or Gaston?
Gaston.
The Minotaur. That's what I was thinking. So the Minotaur is actually Gaston.
He's a social apex character. He's disguised and beloved and outwardly benevolent, but once that's stripped away, he's an animal tyrant. More savage than the Beast. She even says he's not the Beast, Gaston. You are.
And the native culture would be like her father.
In fact, Beauty and the Beast, I'm glad you said this, is one of the best examples. In the opening number, all three claimants make their claim. Belle is singing about her desire to have more than the provincial life. She can't wait to get out and see the world. She's aspiring to something beyond her reality. While she's doing this, the native culture makes their claim because they constantly gossip about her weirdness. Oh, there goes Belle. She's a weird one. She doesn't conform. She's non-conforming. She's different. The native culture is very clear that she's different, that she should be, which means she should be doing something else. She should behave in a different way. That is the native culture making their claim on Belle. And then at the end of the song, Gaston comes in. He's like, she's going to be my wife. And he's singing about, he hasn't even met her yet. So he doesn't love Belle. He just wants to possess her. He has no pre-existing relationship. So he makes his claim to Belle at the end of that song. So Belle, the native culture, and the masked minotaur, all three make their claim to Belle in that opening number. It's perfect.
Okay. Fascinating. I think it's extra. It's very interesting as well that also, since we had just in passing identified the Beauty and the Beast as archetypically feminine like this, that this is an overarching thing that goes with this and fits into this so well. Okay, so let's go on to the captivity bargain, right?
So, and I'll try to be brief. The sacred fire is a tricky one because it's so unique. So it does take a little bit more to explain. Yeah. But so once the three claimants have spoken, the heroine has a problem. And in a lot of stories, she attempts to reconcile the competing claims to her sacred fire through a captivity bargain. This is where you get the archetypal captive princess. She usually agrees to the captivity bargain voluntarily, such as Katniss. She's like, I volunteer as tribute. A lot of heroines agree to it willingly. Not always, but a lot of them do agree to it willingly. The reason they agree is because they're trying to reconcile the chaos of the three claimants. So they are agreeing to conform. They are agreeing to downplay their individuation. They're agreeing to captivity on some level in order to create a little bit of social harmony, which it's a little bit of a tragic scenario, but she's agreeing to it because she trusts the people who are telling her she shouldn't be wanting these other things. So the heroine makes a captivity bargain. However, she crosses her finger behind her back because her claim toward individuation is not going anywhere. She still wants all that she wants. She still aspires to something more. So she will be non-conforming, but secretly. That's typically part of the captivity bargain. But in the early going, she does agree to it, and she is captive for a time, while maybe breaking the captivity bargain secretly if she can.
Okay.
And then the next theme is what I call the Black Swan. Now, this is the theme that is the most random. It could show up anytime in any story, and it's a bizarre one. I didn't know what to make of it for a long time. In fact, Cameron had a great theory on where it comes from, but this is called the Black Swan. And a lot of heroines have apocalyptic imagery associated with their stories at some point, nature gone awry, whether we're talking about the tornado coming in Wizard of Oz, the mushroom cloud blowing up in Terminator 2 right in front of Sarah Connor. Or I don't know if you know the story, Their Eyes Were Watching God, but there's a hurricane, a Florida hurricane that comes through in Act 3 and just devastates the society and upturns the heroine's entire world. But the Black Swan is a natural, temporary event that comes in and upturns the heroine's world. And was stunning to see how often the Black Swan recurs in heroine-centric stories. And then lastly, for part 1 is the call to adventure. This sounds so basic, and in some ways it is, but it's not like the hero's journey. The call to adventure is a narrative advice that gets the heroine out of one place and into another part of her journey. The call to adventure is him getting ready to leave his native culture and go out into the exotic other world. However, with heroines, and this was part of your debate the other day with Brianna, home as captivity versus home as comfort. I noticed something. This is early in my studies when I still judged heroines on the hero's journey scale. I noticed that heroines were skipping the refusal of the call. And this bothered me because I thought that it was a flaw in the writing. I thought that writers were skipping the refusal of the call to make heroines more brave, and they weren't letting them vacillate, but that turns out not to be true. The home environment to many heroines is oppressive, confining, restrictive. Heroines are very eager to get out of their home environment to explore their native culture. They want this. Their native culture looks exotic to them. It's just outside their window. They want to go check it out. So they are less likely to refuse the call. Secondly, if you understand the hero's journey, and my theory that it is really the soldier's journey, when the hero is asked to leave his home, he's facing his own expendability and likelihood of destruction in the story. So if that's on the table, that's a good reason to balk. It's a good reason to think twice before you go on this journey. I don't think heroines are facing that self-annihilating potential for destruction on the journey the same way that a soldier might be. So I think that they're less likely to skip the call. Home becomes to a soldier the place of safe returns. Home is where you go back to. The Shire. I think you guys mentioned the Shire. Thank God we're back there. Or the Fortress of Solitude, or Starfleet headquarters, or the Batcave. It's a place of sanctuary, and it's certainly more preferable to the horrors of a war-torn place. So the call to adventure is a little bit different for heroines. They usually jump at the chance and are enthusiastic about accepting that call to adventure. So, and that would end what I guess I hate saying Act 1, but what would be the equivalent of Act 1 for this?
Okay. We don't want to stop for too long, but okay. So then to clarify this point then, because I can also think of for home being confining for males in the hero's journey.
Yes.
Okay. So we have that same element there.
Yes. So here's the difference. Okay. You actually mentioned a couple great examples, like Luke Skywalker. Clearly he feels confined.
Yeah.
I'll have to write a separate book on the hero's journey at some point, but I have analyzed it and I have notes on it. The native culture's claim to male heroes tend to be for labor or for warfare. Those tend to be the two claims the native culture places. Luke's claim, like Neo in The Matrix. Remember his boss gives him that talking to, you find yourself another job, sir. The native culture is claiming their labor. And the hero is like, I think I could be doing more than this menial work. Luke Skywalker says the same thing. But again,
exactly that. Yeah.
Exactly. So the key factor is, what is the likelihood of their destruction by accepting the call to adventure? Neo and Luke go on the hero's journey. Their destruction is very likely. So that's why they're like, well, I don't know. You can go I'll take you to Anchor ahead. Neo opens the door to the car. He was like, fine. He's like, I'm out of here before he comes back. So because that's why I think warrior-oriented tropes of the hero's journey, the hero balks first before accepting the call. And I think it's a secret message embedded in there to tell us that, like, even heroes are afraid of this. So if you're afraid of it, you're normal.
Well, right. No, it is that. It is that. So, but you're saying that because, in the masculine side of this, the hero side of this, the hero is fantasizing about adventure, instead, like Luke Skywalker, Neo, all of that, classic Percival fantasizing about adventure. And then all of a sudden it's offered to them. And then they have to actually confront the reality of what adventure means, which is their probable destruction.
Yes.
And so they prevaricate.
And I would just caution saying that's masculine. I think it's warrior oriented. So if a woman is about to go on the hero's journey, if she's confronted with the possibility of her destruction, and it's a likelihood, she'll probably balk too.
That's right. Because like I said, I separate masculine and feminine from necessarily male or female. So
right, a warrior about to set off on a serious quest like that will think twice, and they should think twice. Heroines aren't thinking twice necessarily because it's a different situation for them. The motivation to leave is different. You know, they're trying to get out of a confining environment, so they will not likely refuse the call. So my rule to or advice to writers was weigh those two things out for the refusal of the call. How oppressive is the home environment, and what is the likelihood of their destruction if they accept the call to adventure? And I mean death, like you will be annihilated. If depending on your answer to those, they'll have the refusal of the call or they won't, or it'll make more sense or it won't.
Okay.
In the call to adventure.
All right, then let's start. You said you didn't like saying Act 2, but let's starting Act 2 then, which is over here. I guess I can bring my notes up. So I was saying that I was taking notes inside your outline here.
Oh,
but
okay.
So we got Chapter 2, which is the Cult of Deception.
Yes.
Chambers of Knowledge, Chamber Guardians, Beast as Ally, Aiding a Fragile Power, and Broken Truth. So somebody was looking. Here's our outline right here, so they can look. I'll bring this down, but that's where we're going here. All right, Cult of Deception.
Okay. So at this point, the heroine has left the pure confinement. She's found some level of individuation, and she's navigating the labyrinth. She's answered this call to adventure. She's now exploring the labyrinth of her native culture. This tends to be the process. And the cult of deception is a very unusual thing that I found. Heroines tend to be monitored, watched. I noticed that even neutral characters that have no real interest in the heroine tend to continue to obstruct her when she's on her quest. I also noticed this happens a lot. They are redirected. The heroine is trying to go one way and someone redirects them in another. So there's a cult of deception. And I call it a cult because it seems to be decentralized in a large way. It's a natural obstruction of whatever the existing structure is to her native culture. She's not welcome as she navigates, or there's parts of it that are being hidden or shielded from her. Or misdirected. Sometimes they outright lie to her. What's the other? Sometimes a heroine will be hit on. Now, it might not sound like being hit on is a cult of deception, but the emergence of an ulterior motive in characters presents a level of deception. We don't know if the character is shooting straight with us anymore, and the heroine will have to the heroine's job at this point is to move the character back to neutral as they try to redirect her for romantic interest or whatever. I think of like the guy from Silence of the Lambs. He's like, Baltimore could be a wonderful town if you have the right guy. And she's like, nah, so dealing with ulterior motives is a big thing with heroines. It happens a lot. And I do think it's part of the cult of deception. And this happens without a leader. It happens naturally on its own, in a decentralized way. So that's the reality. The labyrinth is the structure. The cult of deception is the human side of that. This is how humans respond to the heroine in real time. And it's misdirection, redirection, deception, ulterior motives, all sorts of things that she runs into. And this is very common in heroine-centric stories. Okay. The next one is the Chambers of Knowledge. I found this pretty interesting, and this will probably be the briefest one. But as heroines explore their native culture, instead of going outward on a journey and discovering all these distant lands, heroines tend to enter rooms that are filled with a specific theme of worldly knowledge. And they're usually there to get information from that room. And the rooms are usually loaded with archetypal imagery and objects like in a dream. It's really cool. Again, I'll stick with Clarice for simplicity. She has to enter that U2 or yourself storage facility where there's all these weird objects inside the chamber. She has to go to the entomologist where there's all these insect. It's all about insect knowledge. What's the other one? She had to go to the asylum where that doctor was. So heroines tend to visit interior chambers of the native culture, whereas the hero goes outward. The heroine goes further inward into the native culture, into chambers of knowledge where there's information that's safeguarded there. And then she's also not alone, which brings us to the next theme, which is the Chamber Guardians.
Well, I just interject right there for just a second, because I think it's really interesting to notice things like that, because you might think that that's oddly specific. Like that, okay, like a room with knowledge in it, that's something that needs to happen at some point in this story. But yet I've seen that in other the books that I've been been reading on story structure and things like that, that like after like a certain part in the hero's journey, after Act 2, after the major ordeal, there's very often a scene around a campfire, or that otherwise involves fire and light.
Huh.
Like as they reflect on their experience. It's very natural. It seems very natural to do that around a campfire or something like that. And so you do end up, even in when I'm reading those, like some strange things that, like, notice how often in all of these stories, the next scene after this major challenge or whatever involves reflection and fire. Whether it's sometimes it can be like a candlelight at dinner, like the two people are deciding to have dinner and there's candles or something like that. But even so, that sounds like it could be like, wait, that's oddly specific. But yet sometimes these might be really deep archetypal things that do appear. Room of knowledge, reflection over fire. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, they are pretty deep, and on a different. Maybe we could talk further about it, but I was going to tell you the whats and then the whys maybe later. But
okay.
There are some very. What's that?
I said we're going to have to talk more.
Yeah, there are some fascinating reasons for that specificity that you're talking about. But I will say that the chamber is almost never empty, and that leads us to the next one, which is the Chamber Guardian. And these are interesting because almost everyone who knows the hero's journey has heard of Threshold Guardians. Right. Threshold Guardians block the hero's effort to exit the native culture. They tend to be a belligerent sentry. Cerberus in Hades is a famous example. Heroines rarely, because they're not leaving the native culture. So that threshold is not the same for them in a lot of heroine-centric stories. So when they enter a chamber of knowledge, there's usually a chamber guardian there. And the chamber guardian is less of a belligerent sentry and more of an administrative trickster, someone who is a master of the place. And there's almost always a social test that the chamber guardian gives to the heroine, and she has to utter the magic words or pass the social test in order to parry the challenge given to her by the chamber guardian before she can restore the function of the chamber of knowledge, which is to pull information out of it. This is great for crime dramas, by the way, which happens all the time. You have to enter, the heroine enters a room, they have to get information, and the chamber guardian is there blocking them. So the Chamber Guardian is a fascinating difference between the heroine's labyrinth and the hero's journey. They are often members of the home culture. So they're masters of the language and they know the administrative procedures. They're very tricky. I think of the Arabian jinn. You know, it says, what's your wish? And if you word it the wrong way, you get a cursed version of, or twisted version of the wish. That's the danger of grappling with a Chamber Guardian. They might outwit you and you don't get what you ask for. So heroines deal with this a lot, the Chamber Guardian aspect, rather than a Threshold Guardian. Okay. Okay. And then the next theme is one that is one of the most flexible and prominent in the heroine's labyrinth. The beast is ally. The imagery of a dark masculine beast and the innocent virginal type heroine is ubiquitous. We don't need to be, no one needs to explain it to us. We understand it immediately. It's everywhere. It's in Little Red Riding Hood. It's in Beauty and the Beast. It's all over the place. The beast, this is one of the coolest things about the beast is ally. The beast ends up being a heroic partner to the heroine. Okay. However, they're a doppelganger of the masked minotaur. They are also half man, half beast. They also exhibit a lot of the exact same bad attributes of the minotaur of the story. This is awesome, actually. I love this. I love seeing it over and over again. However, whereas the beast side is dominant in the minotaur, the human side ends up being dominant for the beast. Think of the Beauty and the Beast again. He was just as aggressive, just as arrogant, just as screaming in her face, just as beastly as Gaston. But his humanity was what won out for him, whereas the beast side of Gaston is what won out. It's almost like a flip. Stories that show that really show the doppelganger effect of the beast as ally, the heroic partner of the heroine, and the masked minotaur. Terminator. She literally has a Terminator come out to help her. This was the villain of the first movie. Now he's reaching out and offering to help her. On her other side, she's got this liquid metal guy melding through bars. So she's got the doppelgangers on both sides. 2 Terminators, both half man, half machine. One's more human, one's more machine or beast-like. Another one, that new movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once. You have the masked minotaur is the daughter. She's the dangerous person. The beast as ally is Alpha Wayman, her husband, who comes out. They're both family members. They're both looking for a divorce from the heroine, and they both are distant and not paying attention to her in her real life. So you constantly get this doppelganger effect between the masked minotaur and the beast as ally. 2 things that the beast does that help define him. The beast almost always breaks cultural rules on some level, which is intriguing to the heroine since she hates cultural restrictions. Here's a guy, or here's a character who will shoot straight with her, no matter how off-putting, an unlikely source of honesty and authenticity, no matter how off-putting this guy might be, he's at least who he says he is. And he's usually antagonistic toward the native culture too, which she finds intriguing. And then 2, the beast almost always adopts the heroine's cause, which is even in the hero's journey, the masculine ends up adopting the heroine's cause. You think of Star Wars, Han Solo, Luke Skywalker. Princess Leia is the one that was fighting the Empire. She was the one that wanted the Death Star destroyed and wanted the plan sent off. It was the beast, Han Solo, who ends up coming back in the end and adopts the heroine's cause. So that's what signals the beast. And obviously romance novels are loaded with this archetypal, back and forth, where the humanity of the beast slowly kind of emerges. But the issue is that the beast is a heroic partner of the heroine. That's an important part. In the hero's journey, and we can get into this part later, he sees himself as the knight in shining armor. To the heroine, she doesn't see him as overtly valiant. She sees him as beastly and similar to the Minotaur in many ways. However, he adopts her cause and ends up proving himself to be a great heroic partner. Even like Hicks from Aliens is another beast as ally character. So anyway, and the beast as ally usually signals a big emergence moment for the heroine because she's now beginning to assert her view of the world into the world. And here's a character who agrees with her. He's adopting her cause. So anyway, that's the beast as ally. That's a big one. And obviously Beast is the beast and Beauty and the Beast. And then the next one is aiding a fragile power. This happens a lot with heroines. This is a second heroic partner, usually somebody or a character that is overlooked, stigmatized, a liability. Again, in Aliens, Newt, they're like, they're very dismissive of Newt, but the heroine, Ripley, takes the time to befriend her and entrust her. Princess Leia, R2-D2, entrusts the fragile power with the Death Star plans. It happens all the time. Heroines trusting a fragile power, probably because they dislike stigmas. They don't like being overlooked or dismissed as they don't like the idea that you're not valuable. And so they're bestowing the fragile power with responsibility and trust is a big moment for them because they're betting that even people that may not look to be heroic are important. And the heroine is proven right. Éowyn brings Mariotic in Lord of the Rings. Éowyn brings him out onto the battlefield when everyone else said, leave him at home. He doesn't belong there. But if she didn't bring him, Mariotic is the one that stabbed the Witch King in the thigh. So he ended up being the key to her victory and the victory over the Witch King of Angmar. So the fragile powers turned out to be great. It was Newt who led the Marines out of the labyrinth of ventilation shafts in Aliens. And it was Newt alone who had that secret knowledge. So aiding the fragile power is the emergence of a second heroic partner. And between the beast as ally and the fragile power, you have 2 people who are now seeing the world and trusting the heroine. And in my view, begin to legitimize the heroine's authority and sovereignty in the labyrinth. She's an alternative. to the order that exists within the labyrinth. And then, did you have any questions or anything about that?
Well, yeah, I'm taking notes of questions, but
Okay.
I think I've got several that we should talk about in like once we get through it all. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, there's lots of fantastic stuff here. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to go through it quick because I'm trying to distill it as best I can. The next theme in the heroine's arc here is the broken truce. This is a big one because this is kind of a point of no return. We established the captivity bargain early in Act 1. Where she kind of decides to conform for the sake of social harmony. The broken truce is where she is breaking that captivity bargain. She's not going to play by the rules. She's not going to be coerced, intimidated, persuaded to follow the rules of the native culture or the possessorship of the masked minotaur. She is going to break that truce. And this has pretty big consequences to her. Usually the native culture turns against the heroine. And if there's a masked minotaur, he is marshaling social forces against the heroine in widespread. Think of Gaston with the villagers. He marshals the social forces against the heroine. It's like a witch hunt. And the heroine is outcast. I think of Ahsoka Tano. She's her story arc is one of my favorites. How she, the Galactic Republic turns against her. The Jedi Order turns against her. And she's a fugitive. But that's the broken truce. That's the archetypal event that occurs, that the native culture turns against the heroine, and the masked minotaur is no longer interested in the captivity bargain because she's not interested in it. The masked minotaur is left to resort to something more severe. And that's what the broken truce is in a nutshell. And that ends the second act, so to say, the middle or exploration part of the heroine's labyrinth.
So that would take us to the third act, we'll say for a better word, which is the permutation or the rearrangement.
The rearrangement. This is where aspects of the labyrinth will be rearranged based on the heroic actions of the heroine. She has made a stand. She broke the truce. She's not going to change her mind. And now the native culture has turned against her, and the masked minotaur is marshaling social forces against her. So now we have a pivot to confrontation. This is what the heroine was hoping to avoid for social harmony, but now it is no longer possible. So the conflict metastasizes for the last part.
And we have the poisoned apple, the unmasking the Minotaur, home as battleground, the shield maiden, the broken spell, and atonement.
Yes.
I love your names for all these, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man. It took a while to find the exact right words that encompassed the archetypal event or design that's happening. And the poison apple is amazing by how often it appears. So like I said, the Minotaur is now pissed off, and he can't persuade the heroine. So the masked Minotaur of the story almost always issues what's called a poison apple, which is a attack of deception, like an apple, something pleasing that the heroine ingests. It's almost always something internal. She ingests it, it's injected or inserted, consumed in some way, shape, or form. There's so many examples of this. Obviously, Eve bites the apple. The Tracker Jackers disorient Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games. Even Princess Leia, when she's captured, Darth Vader has that mind probe with a syringe sitting there. Sarah Connor is injected with a syringe to subdue her. Maleficent drinks that poison that the masked Minotaur has her before he takes her wings off. Time and time again, heroines are deceived with a poisoned apple. Snow White is another obvious example.
Yeah.
And just like Eve, I want to point out, I've heard the theory that it is a moral test that the heroine fails. I disagree with that. I think it's vital to understand that the poisoned apple is a weapon, and it is an attack on the heroine. And it's premeditated, and it's an attack of deception. So in my opinion, it indicts the masked Minotaur, not the heroine, when that poisoned apple is delivered. And this is meant to capture the heroine, and she is captured quite often with the poisoned apple. Secondly, and we can get into this in depth later, the masked Minotaur always attempts to extract or remove the heroine's sacred fire, whatever that symbol is. The masked minotaur is trying to pull that out and extract by force, without permission or consent, the sacred fire of the heroine. So images of the unconscious heroine appear a lot, with the masked minotaur hovering over the top after that poisoned apple is delivered. It's an incredible archetypal image and scenario. Obviously, so this will move to the next moment in the heroine's labyrinth, which is called the unmasking, or unmasking the minotaur. Once the poison apple is delivered, the heroine is aware that this is no longer an equal battle or an equal discussion. There's no bargain to be made. A red line has been crossed. The heroine must confront the minotaur one way or the other. And in another distinction between the hero's journey and the heroine's labyrinth, it's not necessarily single combat that's so emphasized. It's the unmasking of the minotaur that's emphasized. So the heroine must remove the mask of the minotaur in order for the inhabitants of the labyrinth to see the truth about the minotaur, which is that he is an animal tyrant. He is not a benevolent human, as the deception says. So the unmasking is a critical next stage in that confrontation. And sometimes the battle takes place, it's a split second. It de-emphasizes combat. Like in Tangled, Mother Gothel she's like, okay, so now I'm the bad guy. That's the unmasking. She's been unmasked. She's now going to forcibly capture Rapunzel. She's not pretending to be her friend or loving mother. And after the battle, which is one, she falls back and falls out a window. Like, it's over. It's real quick. Kill Bill, same thing. He delivers the poisoned apple by shooting her with that dart gun. Heroine is knocked out. And when she kills Bill, she uses that one quick move, and then that was it. So combat is de-emphasized in favor of unmasking the minotaur. And then this next theme is huge. Home is battleground. Whereas heroes are far away from home and usually fight in single combat against the villain, heroines are almost always at the center of the labyrinth is home. They tend to be fighting at home or in a home-like environment. And I think that this has incredible archetypal power because it's an invasion of the inner sanctum, a place of safety. Again, Rapunzel, she starts in that tower, and the final battle is right back there in that tower. The safe havens of the native culture are invaded by the masked minotaur of the story. And this is terrible because there's no retreat. The safest places are, the sanctuary is compromised. I think of Sarah Connor in The Terminator. Not only does the Terminator invade her home, he ends up storming a police station, the safest place Sarah could be at. There's no safe haven for her. He comes right in there. So this is horrifying. And when I said earlier that the horror genre is heroine central, or it follows the heroine's labyrinth, how many horror stories take place inside of a home or residential abode? All of them. I mean, damn near all of them take place in a house. So the home as battleground is a pretty powerful theme in the heroine's labyrinth because it says an awful lot about where evil can be and how close it can get to the safest places, even in our native culture. And you'll find this throughout heroine-centric stories. Home is battleground. Three more. The Shield Maiden. This is one of my all-time favorite themes in the heroine's labyrinth because it's so recurrent. It's so stunning, and it's one of the most heroic moments in all of fiction. And I literally sometimes I get excited when I see it now because I'm like, God, I know what's going on. The Shield Maiden is a moment in stories where the heroine physically interposes herself between a defenseless person and the masked minotaur of the story. She becomes a human shield between the forces of brutality and the forces of defenselessness. And it doesn't even matter if she's trained for combat or not. Heroines do this in story after story after story after story. It's pretty profound. Ripley famously does it. That's why I'm wearing her shirt. When she confronts the Queen Alien, she gets in the loader and fights him off. The other thing about the Shield Maiden is that the defenseless life shares the battlefield with the heroine. That's something heroes do not usually have to deal with. When Luke is fighting Vader, it's him and Vader. There's no second person that he's got to deal with right there in the battlefield. Heroines do this all the time. In the Frozen, she turns herself into an unbreakable block of ice with the person behind her and Prince Hans, the masked Minotaur, in front of her. The amount of examples is stunning. Let me just find it. Wonder Woman, her famous scene. She comes out and the German army opens fire on her. She's the only one. The good troops are behind her, and she stands there with the shield. Her legs are buckling. She's the only target on the battlefield. She stands in front of them. In Infinity War, there's a great scene where Thanos is about to get the final Infinity Stone. He's storming in. He's batting aside Captain America, and Vision is laying defenseless on the ground. He's the last Infinity Stone. But the Scarlet Witch jumps in front of him, and she fires her like chaos magic, and he comes storming through it. It's a perfect image for the Shield Maiden. She's blocking brutality, encroaching upon her as she physically imposes herself to try to protect Vision. So you see this all the time, and it's stunning. It's in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Conan's mom tries to stop Thulsa Doom. She has an unfortunate end, but the Shield Maiden is a spontaneous moment where the heroine blocks the masked Minotaur, basically by saying, "You're not going a step further. I'm the line. I'm the red line, and you will not cross it." It's a pretty heroic moment in stories, and heroines do it all the time.
I want to go over here to Jamie G just to point out for people who might be joining us. He asked what people are just loving this in the comments, and I'm seeing your comments
awesome.
go by and questions, and I'm seeing also we're going to have a separate follow up brief. We're going to have to get back together. We're going to have to get together for discussion and analysis of this. Absolutely. But just to let everybody know, if you're a channel member, you can click the join, and you want to be a channel member. We're going to go to a Q&A for people for channel members at the end of this. I see James Bacon is a channel member. I see you've got great questions. Bring those questions over to the Q&A, James. But Jamie, Doug is articulating his theory. This is a book that he's written called The Heroine's Labyrinth, and it's going out to publishers now, or looking for a publisher now. So this is a sneak peek. Like, is this the first time on YouTube or first time in video?
This is the first time I've talked about it in this kind of a forum at all.
Okay, yeah. So this is brand new release in this format for his theory that he's writing up in book format and looking for publishers. So for those who are coming in,
yes,
all right. I love that. The Shield Maiden. I can think about tons of different times where that's the case.
Yeah,
even if she's
amazing.
not physically powerful.
Once you know what to look for and you see it, it's like, oh my God, like there it is again. The heroine is the red line. She is not letting that guy past. And it sets up it's a pretty tense moment in the story because oftentimes the heroine's overmatched physically, skillfully, and everything, and she doesn't care. She does it anyway. And then for the sake of time, because I know we are pushing it, the last two are a little self-explanatory. The Broken Spell. This is where the Minotaur is unmasked and the cult of deception is broken. And the immediate restoral, or I don't think that's a word, the immediate restoration of the native culture's better side, the part that has been tyrannized is rapidly returned or restored. It's kind of an interesting thing. You think of like Swan Lake or Cinderella or Moana. The spiraling green comes in. So it happens really quick. And I do think there's reasons for an immediate restoration of the good that are pretty deep when you think about it. But the Broken Spell is when the Minotaur's power is broken and the good part of society is restored. And that is a pretty common ending to heroine-centric stories. And then finally, the hero's journey has atonement with Father. And I almost never try to mirror the hero's journey. However, atonement is important because it gives the character some resolution. And when I searched the hero's journey for what it was the hero got, what did he get? What was he unconsciously looking for? What was he searching for this whole time? My answer is worthiness. The hero wants to be worthy. It's almost as if his mantra is, I am not expendable. I'm not expendable. I'm valuable. I'm worthy. That's why you see heroes get medals awarded to him by the native culture. He's distinct. He's now distinguished. Heroines, I don't think, are looking for worthiness in the same way. From what I could tell, my best answer is validation. They saw something about the native culture that wasn't right, and they were told they were wrong. And they, by the time the spell breaks, they have been validated. So I think the heroine does search unconsciously for validation, proof that she was right all along. And then atonement tends to take three ways. Atonement with self, where the heroine faces herself and forgives herself, perhaps releases the guilt she had been carrying for breaking the culture or the captivity bargain. Atonement with native culture, which is a big one. There's so much conflict between heroines and the native culture. Getting the native culture to acknowledge the heroine was right, to validate her, is a big thing for heroines. And then lastly, atonement with mother. This one is shockingly rare. Mother figures are almost removed from a lot of heroine stories. However, I do think this is going to be more prevalent in modern and future stories. But it is very important for the heroine to reconcile with her mother, because the mother, simply by being a mother, is honoring the native culture's claim to her sacred fire for continuity. So that presents immediate resistance from the heroine, who is rejecting the claim of the native culture, and therefore the mother figure. So for them to reconcile at the end of the story, if the mother figure is present, is an important form of atonement. Some stories feature one or all three of these forms of atonement for the heroine, and they're all different, but they all are they're all important. And that's it. That's essentially the arc for the heroine's Labyrinth. You can see the themes are not like the hero's journey. They're completely like different and recurrent. And they all seem to tell us something about the struggle and the plight of the heroine in our stories. So that's why I'm so excited to share this with writers. It solves so many problems. It helps with the horror genre. Yeah, the genres, just for example, if you're a memoirist, this will help. The hero's journey is very difficult for most regular people to adapt their life to, but the heroine's Labyrinth is very normal because most of us stay within the native culture. Historical fiction is like memoir. Revolutionary tales, there's a lot of stories of revolution where the heroine is actually one of the catalysts for revolution, like Hunger Games. Romance novels, crime drama, and horror stories all follow the heroine's Labyrinth, emphasizing some themes while de-emphasizing others, but the basic format is the same.
Okay.
So that's it.
I'm fascinated. Because like on my search for story structure, which is the kind of the thing that I've been looking at here, that we talk so much about the hero's journey. And I was like, I don't think that fits, that there's got to be more different structures that are archetypical to our culture. And we can talk about later. You've got to come back.
Sure.
You've got to come back. I'm glad we did it this way to get this out there. Because like if Brianna were here, like she's going to watch this and I know she's going to have commentary and stuff like that. So you've got to come back. We'll come back and we'll have an analytical episode.
Sure. There's a lot to unpack with these archetypes. It's actually stunning.
Yes, but you've actually done it, because I was like, man, I'm looking for other story structures. Now I am writing the hero's journey, but I was like, but I've also, for instance, was very interested in the fall. And I was like, that's a different structure, but I haven't gotten nearly as deep into the fall as you've gotten into this. But you've done it. You've asserted this on the theoretical level at the level of the hero's journey, which is exactly what I was looking for, story structures that all sit at that level. And wow, awesome. You've done it.
Awesome.
Okay, so this is fascinating. So we're gonna have you back, but so we're gonna go over to a Q&A. I've got questions, but I want to emphasize, if I know that James has questions. If you're a channel member, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, if you're enjoying what we're doing here on this channel, please do consider joining the channel. I'm working on doing more like this, the secondary follow-up with Q&As and things like that with people, so that the channel members have some additional time. So I'm going to go right over. I've got this link right here. I'm going to put it in the comments. Q&A will take a few minutes. We'll go over to the Q&A. So if you are a channel member, member stream, you can join right now, or you can join over there, the join the channel button down beneath. Click that, join the channel, and then we'll go over there. Like we'll be over there in like 2 minutes. So we'll be right over there. But man, this is fantastic. People have loved it. I mean, looking at all the comments and things like that, I mean, I think this is going to be huge. You're going to be.
That's great.
Oh my God, who is Campbell? You're going to be the next Campbell.
Well, all I care about is that writers can use this to tell the story, because that's the only thing that solved it for me. And it solved all these other little weird problems I was having before. So this is my effort to share this with writers, and hopefully the same frustrations I had go away. You know?
All right. All right. Well, thank you. All right, everybody, please, I will see the channel members, and you can join right now, but I will see you over on that link I just put out. You'll find it on my channel as well in about 2 minutes. We're going to go over there. All right. See you, everybody. See you very soon.